Hanne Nabintu Herland is a popular and high-profile Norwegian academic historian of religions and best-selling author who is well known from TV, radio and newspapers. She has participated in the public debate for a number of years, often voicing perspectives that are not so-called politically correct. Her previous book, Alarm, became a major bestseller. She is now out with another explosive book, Respect, which speaks about the cultural conflicts of our time. Hanne, what are you talking about in your new book?
In my new book, Respect, I have the great pleasure of explaining and telling the stories from my own life, from my most dramatic and very unusual upbringing in Congo, in Africa. This is a country that has, in the Civil War, lost more than 6 million people. It's a deeply troubled country. And I grew up there as well in a very different context and situation than what Norwegians are used to or Europeans are used to. And we all know how many Africans want to move to Europe. And it so happened that I also, when I was young, used to take trips with my parents and go home to the more traditional environment in Norway. It was such a rich country. They had such wonderful values. There was respect for the elderly. There was a lot of hard work. And things were really in order in society. No high crime. I used to love those journeys, those interactions, can you say, between one culture and the other. But as I grew up, I moved to Norway as a grown-up. And I encountered a Norway that had changed dramatically. This was not the fairy tale country that I used to enjoy as a child. Norway had become a strong socialist country where there was a lot of pressure on how to act, what was allowed to, say. People hated religion. They didn't want to hear anything about traditions, old Norwegian traditions. And I, like many foreigners, was stunned by that. And I started working in the Norwegian environment and for the police and I encountered an environment that was so different from the one I used to come to when I was a child. And this is what I describe in the book, and it's a book that talks about the cultural differences of our times. How so many times when we move from one place to another, the story doesn't really become the way you wanted it to be. And I speak about the cultural differences. I speak about the situation of many of the Pakistanis, the Asians, the Africans that moved to Norway, and they do not find a good situation the way they thought they would. I speak about all the different issues, the ethnic issues that are so much in line and talked about in Europe today. I speak about Islamic radicalism and why this type of fury grows in countries that are so rich, that apparently are so free, that apparently are so democratic. And I ask the question in this book, is the West really as free and as democratic as we would like to think it is? Why then do we act in many ways like Hitler did under the Second World War? He was the aggressor. He started wars. The other people had to defend themselves. England had to defend itself. Today, under the ruling of NATO, NATO today has gone from being a transatlantic defense alliance to be a global attack alliance. And we go into weak and feeble countries. And there's a question I pose in my book. Are we facing the end of the West? Has the Western culture come to its peak? Has it become so that our lack of humility, our lack of respect for other cultures, this lack of respect that really came after the Cold War ended and the West or the United States became the sole superpower in the world. Do we think we are omnipotent now? Do we think that we will not experience what the other civilizations experienced as they rose and as they declined and fell? These are the interesting questions I pose in my book. And I hope you want to read it. And I think it's going to be a lot of stories, both personal stories, because I use my own life to illustrate and to give examples of the cultural clashes. And if we do not start to respect each other in a much higher fashion and respect countries, that the countries respect each other in a much higher level, we will create a very unstable and world for the future with a lot of unnecessary wars. That is why my book is called Respect.